Thank you, Speaker. I'm very proud to rise today in support of the University's Accord Cutting Student Debt by 20% Bill 2025, a crucial piece of legislation that will support 3 million Australians with student debt. This legislation was a key Labor promise, and I'm excited that my first speech on legislation in this House is on this piece of legislation, something that will directly benefit over 25,000 people in my electorate of Maribyrnong. This bill is about supporting everyday Australians, relieving cost of living pressures and making tertiary education more accessible for all. It removes a significant barrier to those seeking tertiary education who otherwise may be deterred by the rising costs associated with such an endeavour. Speaker, I take you back to February 2003 when I first walked onto campus. I had the very good fortune of achieving a tertiary education, and I still recall the date that I finally paid off my debt as such a relief. But the reality is that now it is harder. It is harder for our students in terms of both the cost of qualifications as well as, more broadly, our cost of living pressures that we're under. It is, in fact, tertiary educations lead, both vocational and tertiary educations lead to good, well-paid jobs, an integral part of our economy, and therefore we must do all we can to make it more accessible for everyone. Student debt often leads to sacrifices everywhere, like home ownership, seeking important health, care and every other day cost of living pressures. While student debt affects many in our community, it disproportionately affects younger Australians. By cutting all student debt by 20%, we are making a significant investment in the future of all young Australians. We're cutting student debt by more than $16 billion. This is on top of the $3 billion we wiped off of help debt last term and the changes we made to indexation, ensuring that student debt will never increase faster than the growth rate of wages. Speaker, what is also great about this legislation is that it will make repaying student debt fairer. Currently, if you make over $54,435 annually, you pay a percentage of your entire wage towards your student loan. Under this legislation, the minimum income threshold will be raised to $67,000. Further, you'll only be paying a percentage of the income you make over that $67,000. So if you're making $70,000 a year, you'll only be paying $1,750 each year. Essentially, this legislation will not only immediately help Australians, but it will also help them to prosper in the years to come by changing a current system that is unfairly based on their entire income. What's also important to reassure my electorate is that this legislation is clear that the cut will be backdated to 1 June 2025, obviously before the increase due to indexation. That means that indexation will only be applied to your total student debt after the 20% cut has occurred. As a proud Victorian from the education state, I know that this legislation will have an immediate impact. In fact, over 800,000 Victorians have a student debt totalling $23.2 billion. The average reduction from this legislation will be $5,755. This is huge. Throughout the campaign, I door-knocked every suburb in Maribyrnong and I saw the excitement many had when we discussed this policy. This was not surprising because in my community of Maribyrnong, as I said, nearly 1 in 4 have a student debt. The reactions of those that I spoke to were one of optimism and relief, along with the positive reassurance that after a decade of being ignored by the previous coalition government, that Labor was campaigning to take action on the issues that disproportionately affect younger Australians. These are life-changing reductions, and everywhere you turn in my community, there are stories that speak to how important this legislation is. Like John from Strathmore, who studied teaching at Victoria University and is now a social studies teacher at a local school in Airport West. John is a local who has made the most of our higher education system and is now giving back to his community in the invaluable field of educating our children. In doing so, he has amassed a student debt, though, of over $27,000. But thanks to this legislation, he'll be saving over $5,000. These changes will also decrease John's future repayments, leaving him with more money in his pocket. Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased to continue my contribution on this really important legislation, to reaffirm the difference that this is going to make for John, who I spoke about earlier. John from Airport West, a local teacher who has a debt of about $27,000 at the moment, but thanks to this legislation is about to see that slashed by over $5,000. This will be life-changing for John, and I'm so proud to see this happen. I am proud to be a member of a government that is committed to the transformative power of education. From next year, changes will be implemented to the way universities are funded, which will seek to help more people from our suburbs and regions get a chance to go to university. And from 1 July this year, we establish paid prac to support the 68,000 eligible nursing, midwifery, social work and teaching students, help them with their paid prac so they can get that done easily. This, in particular, is going to benefit Sally, another constituent of mine who is currently studying nursing at Kangan Institute. Now that she'll get a prac payment, she'll no longer be faced with the stress of overworking herself as she tries to balance both making sure she can get those bills paid, but also study this incredibly important qualification that we need in our community. This will be life-changing for Sally and for so many others. Speaker, Labor fights for fairness, and a central tenet to our party is its belief in access to opportunity as a pathway and a belief in a pathway in life regardless of economic circumstances. That is why Labor has locked in free TAFE into law, has expanded the fee-free uni-ready courses and established the independent Australian Tertiary Education Commission to drive reform of Australia's tertiary education sector. And then there's our bold agenda to reform early education and care, and our fully funding of our public schools, our public primary and secondary schools. We are the party, the government of education. We stand in stark contrast to the previous coalition government that seemingly made its mission to take a sledgehammer to higher education. They gutted the university sector of funding. They lowered the HECS repayment threshold and used any opportunity they had to make life harder for low-income students. And as their seats started to diminish one by one in capital cities across the country, as the support amongst young people hit record lows, will they learn to take younger Australians seriously? Not quite sure. Throughout the election, they attacked this policy, dismissing it as profoundly unfair. They doubled down, seemingly saying that there was no benefit to be had, and bizarrely took to the election a commitment to increase student debt. Clearly, the Australian people did see a benefit, particularly young Australians, and voted accordingly. Mr Speaker, the people of Maribyrnong put their faith in me and Labor to be progressive and to undertake the reforms necessary to build a better future. This legislation does exactly that. It seeks to reform a tired and frankly unfair system by implementing progressive changes that will make the lives of students just that bit easier. I'm proud to put my voice in support of this legislation and send a clear message to my community that this Albanese Labor government is listening to younger Australians and is working to make their future brighter and fairer. I commend the bill.
I thank the member for Maribyrnong.